Straw Hut Media.
I'm Toby Huss, and this is Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogen and Toby Huss today. Not the other guys.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogen.
Hi, and welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogen. I am Jay Kogen. Thanks for being here, and thanks for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you have any comments or questions, please write me at dbawjk@gmail.com. And it doesn't have to be about anything other than what's up or what are you doing? Tell me about yourself. I'd love to connect with you. I'd also really appreciate it if you're listening and you like it, tell other people to listen and tell everybody that you know, whether they listen or not, to subscribe. I don't need you to actually listen to subscribe. The guys at YouTube don't know anything. They just know the number that the people who subscribe. So subscribe. It's free to you, and it makes me gazillions of dollars. So do it. Because aren't you interested in my financial welfare? I assume that's why you're listening. Anyway, today we have a really good show for you. Toby Huss, a fantastic actor, writer, painter, photographer, and all-around interesting fella, is here to tell us about his strange adventures in the world. He is a man I lovingly call a weirdo. He is weird just in his outlook on life. He's a guy, as you'll hear, who has many different stories from many different parts of his life. He's not judgmental, but he likes different experiences and different people, and I appreciate that. The older I get, the more I realize that I'm kind of a weirdo. More disturbingly, I realize that my father is a total weirdo. So now this is interesting. My dad has, for my entire life, seemed like a guy who's completely organized. He takes notes. He constantly takes notes about everything. He's a television writer, always had stacks of folders and files and file cabinets and all those kind of things. My organization is lax, it's stupid, and without a computer, I'd be done for. But now that he's getting a little older, he's 90, and my mom's 84, I've been asked to take over certain parts of their lives, and I've been going through some of his notes, and they're insane. It's not exactly this, but it's almost like all work and no play make Jack a dull boy is written 10,000 times on a notepad. Dad listens to this, so hi, Dad. Hi, Mom. It's not a secret, but I love you both, but you don't need to take notes. You can make your life a lot happier and a lot easier if you stop taking notes, but maybe you can't help it. Maybe that's your thing. I guess it is. It's only been 90 years, so I'm dumb to ask you to change now. Anyway, Toby is a weirdo too. I'm a weirdo too. And we're going to talk about the value of being a weirdo and the grace of being somebody who's able to look at life from many different angles and look at life from the point of view of an artist. And one of the great things about Toby is he does live the life of an artist. He has a gallery. He does things. He walks the walk and talks the talk. And I sort of do it. And it's like I judge myself for not being as cool as Toby. We'll talk more about it right after this.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogen.
Thank you for doing this.
Of course.
You're adorable for doing this. Over the many years, I've gotten to know some bit about you, but
Yeah.
I don't know everything about you. I don't know the deep, dark crevices. I don't know that we'll get to that here, but what's interesting is, I don't know what made you come to Los Angeles in the first place. I don't know why you got here. How'd you get here?
It's funny, Dave Higgins actually has something to do with it.
All right.
So when Dave and Steve and Mark Fight were driving from Iowa to LA, they stopped at a hotel somewhere. And this is all going to sound horribly racist, but it's how I put my daughter through college.
Sure, okay.
How I put my daughter through Bard.
Right. And your daughter's super racist, so that's cool.
Yeah, she doesn't like anyone, especially going to Bard.
Right,
Oh, they're so exclusive. They don't let anybody in there.
No.
But so Dave and Steve stopped and fight, and they realized that it was like $17 for the night for one guy, or $34 for one guy.
Right.
But they had three guys.
Right.
So they'd have to get two beds and then a couch, and they went, well, that's going to be $50. We don't got $50. We only got 32.
Right.
So they said, just drive up and we'll stand outside. And I think Dave drove up or something like that. And he just said, yeah, just me, just got the single. So they got the single deal. They go in. Mm-hmm. Or no, Mark Fight did it. So Fight did it, and Fight goes in. So
now Dave Higgins, a very funny, famous character actor. Steve Higgins, now one of the producers of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Mark Fight, a great actor who's got some back problems.
Yeah. They're getting taken care of April 3rd.
Okay, thank God.
That's going to be the thing.
Right, all right.
Yeah, no, those are guys I ended up living in a house with them and Harper Steele.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And two of those guys, well, one went on to become the head writer of SNL.
Right.
Harper did. And then
Right.
Steve is a producer there for
Right.
years and years. But so you get to this hotel room, and then in the morning, Dave Higgins, so they get there, they con the guy behind the counter who is an Asian dude.
Right.
I think a Chinese guy. And then in the morning before Steve and Mark woke up, Dave Higgins sort of snuck out. And he walks back to the room. He starts pounding on the door, and he goes, "Mr. Fine, you owe me $44. You owe me $44." And he's screaming, and Steve goes, "What?" And he, "You owe me $44." And so Dave told me that story years and years ago. So I did some promos for MTV and a Spoken Word Unplugged back in the early '90s and mid '90s, and then did some voices on Beavis and Butthead.
Right.
And I'm at home at my place in Lower East Side, and I get a call one day from Mike Judge, who's out in LA doing this show called King of the Hill. And we talk about stuff, and you do this. Yeah, you know, we talked one time, you know, I knew him from MTV days and stuff, and we both knew we had some wonderful redneck stories, me being from Iowa, him being from Texas, and then New Mexico, and so we had traded wonderful redneck stories. And then he said, "You don't do any Asian guys, do you, or anything like that?" Because they were looking for this guy, Khan, to do on King of the Hill. And I went, "No, I don't do." You know what, though? Dave Higgins told me this story. And I told my judge the story.
Right.
And I didn't know that I was on a conference call with a bunch of other people. And they went, "Oh, that'll do."
Right.
So then they said, "Well, the King of the Hill starts up in the late, you know, whenever it's 97, 98. Why don't you come out?" Okay. So that's kind of what brought me out.
And what brought you from Iowa to New York?
The Greyhound.
No, I understand. But
Yes.
the desire to do acting, the desire to do
I think,
what?
well, it was the desire was to get away from the cops.
That's, yeah.
The desire was to get out
That's
of
my
Iowa.
guard. I have a personal guard around me at all time. Yeah,
He's
high
here?
security.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear.
Oh yeah.
Well, the desire.
Once you start doing podcasts, they come after you.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's it.
Is that the threshold?
It is.
That's
It is.
when- And all those ladies from way back. This is your son.
Right, exactly.
I don't
Oh,
know
no,
if it
I
is.
don't know. Yeah,
He
exactly.
doesn't seem like me.
Right. Yeah.
I went to the University of Iowa for 3 semesters, 3 bang-up semesters,
Right.
and then I had to get
You
out
got
of
all
that.
you could get from the University of
All
Iowa
I
in
could
3.
get. Slowly, I went downhill. Well, creatively, I was going great, but academically, I was slowly going down. I was not the place. I even went so far as to take. We had to take a language requirement if you were going to get a Bachelor of Arts degree, and I think it was kind of in the theater department at the time. So I took Italian because my mother's whole side of the family is all Italian, Northern Italian. And that I washed out of that after semester 1.
Sure.
So I went, what's the blow off? I took a semester of German. That seems too hard. And I went, Portuguese? No one speaks Portuguese. So I took a Portuguese class my third semester, and I was.
Bad idea. I did the same exact damn thing.
Apparently, it's hard.
I did the
Portuguese
same
is
thing.
a tough language.
I did the same thing with languages at UCLA.
Hilarious.
The same thing. I failed from language to language to language to language, and then I found a major that didn't require a language.
Nice.
Yeah.
Accounting.
Philosophy.
They don't require a language in
They
philosophy?
did not require a language. I mean, I took a language in high school. I took French for like 5 years, gigantic amount of French. To graduate high school, the teacher said, "I will pass you in this class, but you have to promise me to never take French again."
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
The teacher said, "Do not ever take French." Because clearly I'm not proficient enough to move forward, and she didn't want to embarrass her or the school I came from.
But it was okay for you to study Foucault then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I took Spanish. I took Italian. I think I decided, like you, these are too hard. I'll take Greek or something
nice.
something
Yeah.
insane.
I took Latin.
Yeah, none of it worked. I couldn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was, so I took Portuguese and I was going down it, and the Portuguese teacher was a cool guy, about 30, from Brazil, and
cool.
he was really great, and he was going, "Toby, I will pass you. You just have to come to class.
Right.
Just come to class, man."
Right.
And I went, I'm definitely coming on Tuesday
Right.
at 10. I can get up. And
Right, you never got
Toby,
there.
really, just come to class.
Right.
He was begging me, he would pass, and I couldn't come to class.
Right.
So then I had one friend in there. And one friend, I was a theater major at the time, and I met this guy named Martin, and he's a New York City guy, and his mother's Argentinian, his father's Jewish, and he just looked really funky, looked like a Puerto Rican guy with big teeth and lovely black hair, and he's just a great guy. And he grew up on 86th Street between Amsterdam and Columbus. And he said, "You got to get out of Iowa." I said, "I know I got to get out of Iowa. I got to get out of Iowa." He said, "You got to get out." I said, "I know I got to get out."
Right.
And then that was the door that was kind of open. So when I dropped out in my 4th semester, I guess I made it 3 1/4 semesters. I dropped out and I put everything I had in a one of those mail bags that at the time they used to leave under mailboxes and fill up. So I stole one of those at one point in Iowa City, and I put everything I owned in a mail bag, a duffel bag.
Sort of canvas, yeah.
Yeah, canvas wasn't dirty, and it's nice because it had been, I still have it somewhere, been patched up a few different times for holes and rips. And I took I think I had maybe 100, it was either 180 or $300 in my name, and I took that to New York City and got off at Grand Central Station, or got off at Port Authority. And I took the Greyhound, I was sitting in the back by this Rastafarian guy named Magic, who was coming from Seattle to New York City with a load of deer antlers that he was making pipes out of.
Sure.
So you could still smoke on a Greyhound bus, like you should today.
Right.
And I was sitting in the back and I was smoking Old Gold, so he'd say, "Toby, smoke." So I'd smoke an Old Gold and then he'd light up his and so what he was doing, he had like a little deer antler.
I assume he was not smoking tobacco.
Not tobacco.
Okay, yeah. All right.
So he was getting high and I was hanging out, and he was drilling little holes in the little pieces of antler and then making a pipe and then sitting a screen in there somewhere, and you'd smoke out of that with 2 deer antlers. And that was his gig.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, I saw him about Washington Square Park in New York City, and hey, Magic, hey, Toby! It was a great reunion of 2 degenerates from the back of a Greyhound bus. So I did that, and I stayed with Martine, and I was there for 6 months. And I got a job as the maintenance man at a Catholic church on 90th Street between Amsterdam and Columbus. And I did that for a few months, and then I auditioned for this workshop with this guy, Jerzy Grotowski, who was a Polish theater guy. And it was going to be a workshop in Irvine, California.
They're auditioning in New York for
auditioning in New York at NYU.
Okay.
I wasn't going to NYU.
Right.
But my friend Martine was going to NYU. And he said, "Toby, just go ahead and audition for this."
Right.
I went, "Who's this guy?"
Right.
Jerzy Grotowski. He's a big deal. I had never heard of him. Turns out he was a big deal. Beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So I auditioned and I got in. Apparently, I found out a few years later when I talked to the teacher who was sort of running the thing for NYU that there were 6 students that got in. Jerzy picked everybody from their warm-up, not from their audition, which was a song. You sang a short song under 2 minutes, then you moved to it, right? But there was one of those big metal doors that had that little square glass in it with the crosshatch metal in it. And apparently we didn't know at the time that Jerzy was like looking up and just watching everybody's warm-ups. So I found out later he picked 6 people who, because they had a lot of technique when they were warming up, your vocal warm-up and a physical warm-up, and he picked 6 people who didn't have any technique. Right. And then he picked me because he wasn't sure what I was doing. So 13 of us that went out to Irvine, and we hung out in the Balboa Peninsula at a house that they'd rented for us, NYU rented. So I did that, and then after that, I called up my old friend Mark Feit from the theater department and said, "I don't necessarily have anywhere to go. Right. What, you got a place there?" And he went, yeah, I'm hanging out in this house. There's a place in the garage with Ben Ullin, a comedy magician from Des Moines. Right. I went, okay, so there were like 8 Iowa guys in this house in North Hollywood, and that's how all that started.
I'm guessing from the time that you were failing school in Iowa to the time you were sort of busting your ass in New York City, some desire or something had changed in you to sort of say, I'm going to do something, or I want to make something in my life, or I want to, like, it's not just a wandering, or is it?
No, it was a wandering kind of a while. And then, so I was at the ranch for like a year, little over a year.
The ranch is what you called the funky house that you lived in.
It was just a shitty ranch-style house in North Hollywood with a tiny backyard and a tiny front yard. And
famous stories from the ranch. All of you.
Just
I was never at the ranch, but I've heard stories my whole life. Of the wacky goings on at the ranch.
It was wacky. So I left there and I went back to the University of Iowa thinking I wanted to study anthropology. I thought that would be the way to go, and I thought this time I'm going to get the science. I'm going to get the science stuff.
Why?
Because I really like that idea, and I like the idea of myself being an anthropologist. I thought it'd be great. I really love that idea, more than acting, more than performing and all this bullshit. All right. And then in 1 week, at the University of Iowa, I got a call from my friend Ben Katz, who was doing a play on the Lower East Side, and he wanted me to be in it. And I went, I don't know. It sounds like the way to go. I got nowhere to stay. And then a couple days later, unbeknownst to each other, just randomly, John Lennon calls me up and he says, "Hey, I want you to come to New York and be the maintenance man above the church again." This is Father John Lennon, the
Right.
convicted pedophile priest, not John Lennon, the musician.
Right, but both had the ability to imagine.
Yes, yes.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogen.
John Lennon, I didn't realize at the time he was a pedophile.
Right.
He just seemed like a dude who was going to give me a job.
Sure, most pedophiles start that way.
Yeah, no, I think it's called
They put down the
grooming.
W-9 and they say, fill this out.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they check you out.
Higgins gave me a call like years after I'd left New York, and he said, the name of that guy was John Lennon, right? I said, yeah. He said, he just got convicted. It just came over the radio. So he finally got convicted, and they tossed away the key on that awful human being. But so those two people called me in 1 week, and I went, it seems like I got to go to New York.
Sign from God.
Yeah, sign from God, the non-pedophile God.
Non-pedophile God, yeah.
And I was in love with this girl named Mary Jo Barry in Iowa City, and I had to leave Mary Jo Barry.
Wow.
So I got on another Greyhound bus and cried all the way to the Quad Cities.
Was that
Or Burlington,
a
yeah.
mournful parting of the ways?
Yeah, it was rough, yeah.
Okay.
Because I wanted to stay there
Sure.
and be around that. But ironically enough, when I was at the University of Iowa, the second time hanging out with her, I was working at a restaurant. I wasn't going to school. And but my mother at one point sent me these red long john bottoms to stay warm in the winter. And I would take them like with my shirt off with Mary Jo Barry, and I'd pull them up, and they had such a big crotch. Like some of those long johns have an enormous crotch.
Sure.
I could pull them up right, a little bit over my nipples and my chest. So I started going like this and pretending I was a strong man.
Right.
And that eventually, then I started doing some performances there
Right.
that would later be Artie, the Strongest Man in the World. That was my first job on Nickelodeon that I got.
Fantastic.
So I was doing that character, and these two guys saw me in New York, and they said, come do the show. But so basically, yeah, that was the second time. And I went back to New York and then lived there for 10 years.
So this all fits in perfectly with my thesis that you're a weirdo. Like if I had to sort of boil you down.
Sure.
And just say, well, Toby's really smart. He's, good-hearted, good friend, loyal, but he's kind of a weirdo. He's kind of a weirdo. And and it's true that, if you can be pulled away from this girl that you loved in this world of anthropology for a small part in a play in New York City, then maybe your passion lied more in the theater arts than it did in
That's
anthropology.
what I came to. And if somebody's going through it, it doesn't seem weird to you.
Right.
It's just your life. You're just living it and going through it. Sometimes I look back and go, well, that's some strange days. Those are some, but they're never. To me, I'm not a weirdo at all. To me, a guy who went to college for 4 years and got his accounting degree, or he went back and was a lawyer, and then he got married, and he has 3 great kids, and they live in the suburbs. I go, man, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, weirdos don't think they're weirdos.
I know,
that's
the thing.
I mean,
That's
nobody thinks they're
beautiful.
weirdo. But my thesis, the whole point of the show,
Don't Be Alone.
is Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogen, is I ask smart, interesting people about my own problems. So this is leading up to my big question.
Oh, good.
And then my question is this. I'm kind of a weirdo, a little bit. I mean, not as weird as you, but I'm weird. And I like to think of myself as a brave, bold artist, willing to do stuff, willing to take chances. But I find that when I compare myself to you, you walk the walk way more than I do. And I think that's interesting to me. That you've lived, like you decide you want to be a painter, you have a studio, you paint.
Yeah.
You do, if you have a whim to do a show where you do Frank Sinatra, you do that show, and you do it for years. You're willing to take risks and jump off, the cliff, not real cliff, but the artistic cliff.
Yeah.
Often. And I respect that about you. I think it's pretty interesting and amazing. And I don't think, as much as I've sometimes taken risks, I've ever taken the amount of risks that you have. And I think, well, what is it in you that allows you to go forward, and what is it in me that holds me back?
I don't know. Maybe it's dignity. I mean, it really could be.
I have very little dignity, but all right,
it
maybe.
doesn't seem like that.
Yeah.
I think, but in the way, not to denigrate what I do, I think there's a there's a place I'm comfortable with that I find comfort in really challenging myself like that. Like I didn't know how to paint. I never went to art school. I wanted to, but I didn't. And then one day I went down to Pearl Paint on Canal Street when I was living in the Lower East Side, and I said, hey, when I get some oil paints and then thinner and some brushes, and maybe I'll clip something out of the New York Times and paint it on the wall of my apartment. And I did. And I stood back away from it and I cried. And I went, oh, I know I can fucking paint. It looks like a human face. Holy shit.
Right.
Wait a minute. I got to do this.
Right.
And the same thing happened with writing, too. Somebody said, you want to do performancing? I said, yeah. Well, it's Thursday at 8. I went, oh, that's cool. So that was like on a Friday, and I drank until maybe Wednesday night. And I went, oh, shit. That thing is tomorrow at 8. I should write something. I don't know how to write.
Right.
So I wrote something, and I came up with a character, and I did it. And I went, oh, that kind of works.
Right.
Okay. And I wrote some more things. Well, okay, that's all right. And that idea of taking a look at yourself, I think from a different perspective, from a different vantage point, and seeing what's there, I think was really helpful. And that was never anything that scared me.
What was the vantage point that you looked at yourself and said, because it sounds like you're just having a whim and saying, let me see if I can do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was something internal.
Yeah.
That said, I wonder if I can do that. And then I did the thing, and I went, well, that was fun. I mean, I like doing that. I'm going to do more of that thing.
Right.
And I liked that with performing, and I liked it with writing, and I liked it with painting. And then I have a photo book hopefully coming out in August, because, well, that was a different thing. That was about 10 years ago when I tried to change my, the way that I perceived, I tried to change my visual aesthetic, stuff that I thought was beautiful.
Change it how?
So what happened is I was driving through Palmdale one day taking photos, and I went, boy, this Palmdale, if you'd never been there, it's pretty bleak.
Right.
And there's a lot of giant airplane manufacturing buildings there that are 3 stories high, corrugated tin, beige color.
But if you compare it to Lancaster, it's glorious.
Exactly.
Palmdale's magical compared to
that's
Lancaster.
exactly my point. And I remember driving past that and taking some photos here and there and thinking, man, what a bleak fucking place to grow up. So I grew up in this little town in Iowa, this town, Marshalltown. We had a brick main street that was built in the late 1800s, and just beautiful in the winter when it snowed.
Parades.
Yes, we had parades down. We had the pork festival every year in my hometown. Yeah. Yes, it was very big, and we had the Central Iowa.
We're having the pork festival at my house right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Whenever we get together for poker, it's a pork festival.
Yeah.
But I remember Christmas time being especially beautiful with snow coming down this little main street. It was nice. And I thought, well, wait, that's kind of an elitist idea to think that some kid growing up in Palmdale has visually less of a beautiful experience around Christmas time than you do. I thought, well, some kid growing up in France, in the middle of Paris, looks at my hometown and goes, ugh, what a fucking dump.
Right.
Or les dump. Or whatever it is.
Because you're American. Because you're American. They hate it anyway.
Yeah, but how would you say it in French?
Merde.
Okay, merde.
Yes.
It was a merde. You had 6 years of French.
I had 6 years. But again, the teacher said, never, ever take French again.
Never invest it.
Yes.
They don't want you in the country. And stay away from Montreal, too, if you could.
I've been to France, but it's all right. But it's okay. But Palmdale listen, everything can be beautiful in isolation and artistic. If you take a camera and you decide to take a photograph of anything, sometimes it's going to be glorious, and sometimes it's going to be hideous, and sometimes it's going to be, it's through your eye, the eye of the artist.
Well, what I said is that, well, how can you change your visual aesthetic to find someplace like Lancaster or Palmdale beautiful when you didn't before?
Right.
I said, well, you have to find something there. And then I realized there was a common aesthetic language. There's a shared aesthetic visual language that is spoken in America. And it's there all over the place if you can open yourself up to see it. So when I would drive across country, which I've done I can't remember how many times, a lot of times, stopping in small towns and photographing them and people and things, but mainly stuff.
Right.
Not as many people as things and stuff, signs and weirdness and strangeness.
Right.
And beauty. though. But you have to go into a small town and you have to say, okay, what is the aesthetic language? What is the language being spoken here visually? What's that visual language? You have to understand it immediately and then be able to photograph it. And that's what I've been able to do. So I started in Palmdale to try to change that, to see my visual aesthetic said, this brick building in Marshalltown with that thing, that's beautiful. Right. But what if you go into Palmdale? What the fuck is beautiful there?
So what's one of the most surprising, beautiful things you discovered in the world of things that you think ordinarily would have been perceived as gross or boring or bland?
There's not really one thing. It's more the idea of these places that are American places that I would go to, and I'd say to myself, you have to start from a neutral point. You have to know that this place is beautiful. So you need to learn the language immediately to be able to take the photograph of, the Fratelli Cafe across the street. Right. You might think there's nothing there. No. There's something there. You need to understand the language of that Fratelli Cafe and the lady with the blonde hair getting out of it with the red.
Look back at the microphone.
Right. The lady getting out of it who's right now with the red sweater getting out of it. There's something there. You can be there to witness that and to find the beauty in that thing. There's a language being spoken there.
Like if you went to a gas station in Palmdale, did you find beauty? What beauty did you find in Palmdale? Ultimately?
Oh, sure. There's great things in Palmdale. Sometimes there's the way a car is parked at a strange angle in front of a white building that has this recessed cement tile in it in the shape of diamonds, and the way the sun is hitting it from this area, making the shadows over here and lighting up this side of the car. And inside the car, there's a dog sitting beside a little kid. Now that scene right there.
Yeah.
That scene is a beautiful scene. That's a beautiful American scene.
Yeah.
And I take photos of those things.
Do you call child services very quickly after that?
Never.
To get to the dog and the car and the child? No. Okay.
I always let it play out, and I never interfere with
you're a journalist.
The photo. I'm taking photos of as they are. Right. But also, it's from an evolutionary standpoint, we can't stand in the way of what happens.
It's got to be,
from
if that kid can't get out of that car, it's up to him. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never broken a window to rescue a child or a dog.
Yeah, all right.
I suppose I would at some point.
It's an odd badge of honor.
Yeah. I will never break a window. No, but I mean, to me, that's the American tableau. Yeah. And I never, if something is in the way, if there's a shitty looking car in the front of this beautiful building, I never ask the guy to move the car. I never move a trash can. I never move a fucking piece of paper out of the way to take the photo. Right. I have to incorporate that thing into the photo and say, if you're looking at it from a neutral point of view, that's the thing that you need to take the photo of. So that's there for you to see, not there for you to alter. In the photos, I was like that. And then what I realized, which was a strange thing I didn't realize until years later, after about 5 years or 6 years of taking photos like this, I realized I was doing that more and more with people that I met in a non-photographic way, that I would meet somebody and I go, oh, let's meet this person from a neutral place.
You like people, and people like you. I've watched you talk to strangers, and find out about their whole life. And like we were at a restaurant not long ago, and this old
the World War II guy.
World War II guy.
Oh, he was beautiful.
And this guy walked up to our table, World War II veteran, and it was on Memorial Day or something like this.
Yeah,
it was like he's proud of his service, and we're excited to meet this guy who actually served.
He was like 101 or something.
A very
like
old
that.
guy, and we started talking with him, and about 15 minutes into the conversation, he started repeating the same story over and over again. And that's when I check out. That's when I think, thank you for your service, but I'm going back over to my party. You stuck with him a little bit longer.
I stuck with him.
Yeah, you have the patience that I don't have of somebody who's like, okay, I'm going to...
Not always, but sometimes it's a kind of a meditation in the human condition. Like, oh, what's this little fella up to?
Right.
And he's always repeating himself. Well, that's part of what he's up to. Part of him is repeating himself.
Yep.
Well, there he goes again. He's not looking at anybody. His wife is yelling at him. He's got his little hat and his pins. Right. God love this guy.
He needed to talk to people.
Here? Yeah.
And you provided the canvas for him to paint his words on.
Yeah. And maybe I've done that too much in my life, receiving that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm getting much better at boundaries as I get older.
Well, that's good.
And healthy boundaries, not gross, big, brick things, but healthy boundaries.
Is that any part of your process when you act, is to sort of go down the Rolodex of weirdos and strange people that you've met and say, this is what this guy might be like? Or is it just throw that away and just become this character for whenever you develop just in your own world? It's like some people need a template other people don't, and they just say, okay, I'm gonna approach this role from how I'm myself and how I'm seeing this character.
Yeah. I think there's a combination of all those things. There's always somebody you might put a walk in, or you've seen somebody do a move and you incorporate that. I had an Uncle Tom Rollins who was he was vice president of Pennzoil for a while down in Houston, and I used parts of him in this Halt and Catch Fire show that I did for this guy Bosworth. There's Uncle Tom in there.
It's a great show. Still, people talk about that show.
That's a nice little show. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
that was a good one. But that was a part of Uncle Tom in there. And then there's little parts of different people in different places. Yeah, but usually nobody specific that I went, oh, that's going to be the Russian accent of the guy that we worked for that one time. It's usually not that specific, but there's little pieces of so many people. Because, sometimes you don't. There's a buddy of mine, this Australian guy that I knew back in the day. We're still friends on Facebook. He moved back. And he was in bands, and he worked at this Two Boots pizza place in the Lower East Side when it opened up, and we did construction together for years in New York. And I just remember him being really aggressive in a way that I wasn't that aggressive. Like if we walked into a place and somebody, he paid for something and they owed him another $1, he'd go, "Where's my fucking dollar? Where's my fucking dollar?"
Right.
And he really stood up for himself in an aggressive way, and I wasn't like that. I'd go, "Hey, I'm not sure, but I think maybe what."
Right.
I think I might have given you $12, and then you gave me. I think I might need one more. All this fucking rigmarole, and he'd go right to it. So that's a thing I've used in different characters. A guy that goes right to the thing without thinking, in an aggressive way. But there's no Australian accent, and there's no anything. But I remember being shocked by that guy. Like, wow, he really goes right to it. And he's a skinny guy like me, and he doesn't give a shit.
But do you get your $1 back too? Just in the softer way?
Yeah, but no, I go right to it now. I've incorporated that.
All right.
I usually go right to it now.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogen.
Are you? Well, we all have fears, but I mean, like it seems like you've faced fear pretty well over the years.
Yeah.
If you're taking, jobs in churches and with pedophiles, and you're doing construction jobs and meeting with strange people, it doesn't feel like you. I guess my question is, how do you deal with the fear? Obviously, everybody has fear of some kind, but how do you deal with it? Because you seem to wander through the world taking a certain amount of risk with a certain amount of adventure.
Yeah.
People in Palmdale could get mad at you for taking pictures.
Yeah. I got the cops called on me all the time taking pictures, and I just thought that I was really crazy. I got pulled over one time taking photos in, I think it was like Alabama somewhere. I was taking photos, and there was a public school here, and there was a gas station here. I was taking photos of the gas station, side of the road, pulled my car over. Gas station photos. There was 2 trash cans outside. One was red, one was green. I went, maybe something there. Click, 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 click. Woo! No, I drove away, and I got about 10 feet away. I was in front of the school. Woo! Pulled me over. And 2 big, dirty old redneck white cops get out, and what's going on? Why'd you pull me over? We just saw you taking
pictures at school.
Think you just take pictures there. What's that? I'm taking pictures again. No, we saw you taking pictures at school. I went, I was not taking pictures at school. Well, we don't, we're just worried about, what are you worried about taking pictures of? Worried about, perverts. And I thought, well, I just got to get him to say pervert one more time. So I was talking, and we were talking a little bit, and I said, nah, you can see the photos I took to the gas station. Here, man, you want to see them? The digital camera, and click, click, click. Okay. I just want to make, sure that there are no perverts around. He went, yes, exactly. I just want to say, I'm going to say pervert again. Time to go. But that sort of thing, I thought, I have to put myself in those situations to do the thing that I wanted. If I have to put myself in that situation, then tough shit for you, Toby. You have to find a way to navigate that, because the thing you want is to take photos of that thing. You want to take an honest photo. You want to have an honest interaction with yourself creatively. And if having an honest interaction with myself creatively means you got to go into a neighborhood in Detroit, or you got to go to Gary, Indiana, or you find yourself in Gary, Indiana, taking photos, and half the street is burned out.
So many people would say, no, I don't want to face any of those problems and issues, and I would much rather sacrifice this true art, and instead I'll take a photograph of things that are comfortable to take a photograph of.
I'll press that AI button. I have no problem with that.
Right.
It's just for me, whatever it is, to be true to myself, I know I needed to do that. And if you choose to stay at home and do more wonderful Photoshop stuff.
It was not Photoshop. This was a whole other app. That's a whole other app I used to make this. Canva. Canva. I use Canva.
It was Genius Painter 206. No, but I mean, if somebody wants to do that, then fucking live it up.
All right, Toby. We're going to go. Well, you haven't really solved my issue, which is why I'm such a coward and why you're so brave.
I think the thing is that you have a level of living your life that you're comfortable with, and it sets off whatever dopamine or whatever thing you go, now I'm here. And everybody has their own different levels of, and some guys need to jump out of planes. I don't want to jump out of a fucking plane.
Right.
I don't want to climb the sheer face of El Capitan. Fuck, that's crazy.
But the idea of challenge is very exciting to me. The idea of challenge, or facing your fears is very exciting to me. If it's hard or scary, then you got to do it. You got to try.
Right.
If it's worthwhile. I mean, not everything, not jumping out of planes, but something that if it's worthwhile and it's a little scary, then you got to do it. So all those are true. I just feel like you get more of that done than me. I stay in my lane, which is comedy writing and being a really popular podcaster.
Well, and my lane is maybe not being as completely proficient in one thing as it is to really try my hand at a lot of things. And my lane just happens to be 5 or 6 different lanes that aren't very wide. They're very narrow and very specific to me.
All right. So now this is time for our viewer mail or listener mail.
Now it's time for listener mail.
This is a question from Carlton, who sent in this question, not knowing it would be asked of you, but just wanted to know what it was for any of my guests. But this is a perfect question for you, which, what is the price you pay for your art?
I think there's a certain amount of stability that I traditional kind of like married life stability that I don't have. And that could be for a lot of reasons.
Right.
But I know sometimes that the art thing comes first.
Do you think it's possible to have a traditional relationship and still pursue? What's the hold up? Why is that the price? Is I guess what I'm saying.
I don't know if there is a price really. I know that I think maybe the price is to want to kind of dive into those dark places inside of yourself and expose them to the light.
Right.
I think that process, the process of creation for me is also akin to a kind of a therapeutic process of diving into those dark places. So I think maybe the price you pay is that you truck a lot in some dark places of yourself that maybe are really uncomfortable places for you to access and you to be. But I've found that this is how I'm going to live my life, is to play in those dark places.
But it's therapeutic. It's you're digging up crap inside of you, but it's also therapeutic to get it out.
It can be. It can also be awful because even though you're exposing it to the light, the thing that you're digging up and exposing to the light is really dark, and it's awful shit sometimes. But so the process of getting it out of the earth, getting out of your earth, can be terrifying and exhausting and filled with shame and pain. Yeah.
Yeah. That dark stuff that lives within all of us is there anyway.
Yeah.
And whether we're acknowledging it or not, it's there and it's affecting us and it's moving us around. And if you can expose it to yourself, not only the world, but to yourself, then you have a better chance of dealing with it than you do if you just kept it in a subconscious.
Oh, I think so too, because that's how, that's the problem with, I've done a bunch of MDMA therapy the last few years, and that process is going back and you relive that old trauma that you have kept in. Your psyche binds that up when you go through it, because to actually see what's happening to you at that point would kill you. It's awful stuff. So it binds it up. It's doing you a service, but then you keep reacting to it later in life like it's actually still happening, and that's part of the therapeutic process, the talk therapy process, to keep going back and find that thing that's making you react like this. And I think stuff like psilocybin therapy or MDMA therapy can bring you directly to that place where you're holding that trauma, releasing that trauma, so you can heal that part of yourself and go forward and not have to react to that bad shit.
it's interesting. I know, our friend Dave Foley just did ketamine.
There's ketamine stuff. I saw that episode. Yeah,
and he really found it invaluable.
Yeah,
and it found it opening new pipelines in his brain so that he doesn't have to traverse through the trauma.
Well, those
moment.
neural pathways get set when you're younger.
Yeah.
So this is actually physically finding a way. I mean, psilocybin does it and ketamine does it. So does MDMA. And I did an ayahuasca festival last summer, and not a festival, but an ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica, which was great. And
settling the bill at the ayahuasca festival is a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody admits to what they've got. But the wallets do not come out.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Alligator arms. People have.
Exactly. No, it's fantastic. Yeah,
they can't reach across the table and grab. No, but I think that to me has been very healing and very important to do things like that.
So here's another thing that we like to do on the show, which is called a moment of joy.
A moment of joy.
What's something that happens to you on a daily basis or often enough that just fills you with joy? It could be looking at a trash can in Palmdale, but it's like, what is it finding beauty in different places? What's the thing that gives you?
It's finding beauty and being grateful for that too.
Yeah.
For me, it's a big deal to be grateful for those little things in my life. Like this morning, I went to the studio and they were supposed to have fixed these windows and they didn't do that. So I get a cup of coffee. So it's down in Frogtown. So I walked on the bicycle path and the sun was coming up. It was 7:30. It was already up a little bit, and we had some rain. And there's some ducklings. There were 10 ducklings sort of swimming along, and I just sat there at one point and sat there and looked. It was very beautiful. There's this Wim Wenders movie, who is not Herzog. He's Wim Wenders. But he did this movie called Perfect Days. I don't know if you've seen it. But
I have seen it. It's fantastic.
And there's that Japanese word for looking at the light coming through the leaves. That's what I was doing this morning, just saying, whatever problems you have in your life, this right here, watching the ducks go by. And there's, I went down there yesterday and sent my daughter or a few days ago and sent my daughter a video, me walking down the side of the LA River outside of the studio and how beautiful it is. And I went, oh, look at this little fish in there. And for whatever reason, there was a vibrator floating there against some mud. And I went, fucking LA River, shopping cart, rusty shit, piece of thing, jagged metal sticking up. And I went, this is beautiful.
All right.
But I was sitting there this morning looking at the ducks swim by. The vibrator was gone. They had some wash. The rain washed it away. Who knows where the vibrator is? Out to the ocean.
Hopefully to a wonderful new place. I'm writing a children's book about it. The adventure where the vibrator goes.
Let's get Mo Willems.
It's called Good Vibrations. So no part of you is like, those fuckers are supposed to put the window in.
Well, part of me is like, dude, you got to get this done, because this is beautiful. So that this crew in that they did it and they put the framing up. It was 2x6 framing. And I had 3 windows in the office to look out on the big wall of painting. And I said, we're changing that to 2. An architect came in, okay, 2 windows, great. And there's 72 wide and 48 high. You can slide them across. Great, do that. Buy them at Home Depot. Just pop them in once the opening is there up front. Great, okay, we'll just put 2 in. Great. I come back a couple hours later and they were 48 high or 48 wide and 72 high. And I went, guys, this, they went, no. I said, no, it has 72 wide, 48 high. 2 windows. I said, yeah, 2 windows, but I want them 72. And I'm trying, and you get a little upset with these fellows because I'm paying them a ton of money, but they're either going to get it done or they're not. And if they don't get it done, then I talk to the architect, and there's things you can do. And it takes a while. It's taken a while for me to get to this point to not go, you fuckers.
Right, well.
I'm outraged.
What about your Australian friend?
Easy on
your Australian friend wouldn't have taken any shit from this. He would.
I'm very firm.
Right.
They changed the windows. Okay. Great. We got that done. They're going to add the other thing. Go out and look at the ducks. Just fucking go out and look at the ducks. I'm unemployed right now, so I'm fantastically unemployable in the acting world at the moment, which has been great, like a godsend. So instead of getting frustrated about that, what do you have? Go down to the studio, see they fucked up the windows. All right, go look at the ducks. Go look at see the thing. I try to be appreciative and grateful for.
I like that. I
so those little moments of joy, and look at the sun coming through the leaves.
Yeah, I'm a big sunrise, sunset guy.
Yeah.
Not just because I'm a Jew and it's Fiddler on the Roof. Because I know that's what you were thinking. I know that's what you were thinking.
Oh, they love their sunrise.
Sunrise, sunset, Jesus.
Oh, they hate their appliances on Friday, I think. I don't know what they got against them. I'll run a chainsaw on Friday.
I want to be grateful. I also want to rely. I want to see beauty in the world and all those things. And I can compartmentalize probably better than most about all those things. I would not be bothered by the window not being put in at all. But I know most people would. My wife definitely would. So I have to pretend to be outraged in order to keep my marriage alive. Right. so just like, can you believe they didn't do it? Oh, I cannot believe it. No.
Are you still demanding outrage? And I'm outraged.
It's never happened before that workmen haven't completed a job in a timely manner.
Should I call the Times? I believe they should know about it.
Exactly.
It's a scandal.
Yeah.
I think just the older I get is appreciating those little moments in life and just a small, like coming to do this thing is great.
I will say that in terms of appreciation as I get older, I appreciate, the more I appreciate is my friends and people.
Yeah.
And so like the things are good, things are fine, objects are fine, but people and experiences are everything. Yeah. And I definitely appreciate having you in my life. You're an adorable, funny guy, but also
you too, man.
You know, so nice and so kind, and you come out to things and you support people, including my son, including great, like other friends of ours, and it's so nice that you're just there.
Yeah,
it's not something that I take for granted because it's you got to commit, you got to do stuff, you got to show up. Well, thanks for being here, Toby. I really appreciate it. It's fun to do. And I look forward to seeing your photo book.
Yeah.
How much does the book cost? I think we're going
to $40. $40.
Jesus Christ!
It's not 50. That's a break even point.
I told you I liked you. I'm not buying your book.
I'm not a slave to you, for God's sake.
There's no way I'm buying your book.
I'm not your toady. What am I going to buy your book?
This is great, and thank you for being here, and thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for being here.
Yeah.
And don't be alone with yourself. Just go out and say something to somebody else. Speak to somebody. Be like Toby.
Show up. Get on the bus. Go to New York.
Go to New York. Talk to the guy next to you, even if he's making bongs out of antlers. Yeah. Just talk to people. It's interesting stories. Your life will be more interesting and better. So so don't be alone, and we'll see you next time.
Don't be